Trade in the agriculture world is big news right now. And Derrell, how is supply and demand in the beef market going so far?
Well, if you look at the first half of the year, I think, we're kind of as expected at this point. Supply is bigger. Actually carcass weights, which are up this year over last year, are not up as much. We're watching that in the second half of the year, but I think it's going to temper our increase in beef production a little bit. Drought conditions had us very concerned a couple months ago. We've moderated a bunch of that in the southern plains. We still have some drought conditions farther in the southwest, but in terms of beef market impacts, much less potential for impact. So through the first half of the year, I think we're in pretty good shape. Demand has been pretty good so far this year.
So is the recent trade data, is it any encouraging at all, or?
Well, again, the trade data runs about 2 months behind. So the latest data for the month of May for beef was extremely positive. We had about a 21% increase on a year-over-year basis for the month of May. We were up in most of our major markets. Pork and poultry a little bit less encouraging in that respect, but the beef trade has been very, very good so far this year.
So, the trade war right now is just really big news. How might that affect beef markets in the coming months?
Well, it's very difficult to sort all that out. It's a very complex situation. There's a lot of dimensions. Beef is directly targeted in a couple of the tariffs, Canada and China, but really the greater potential for impact is going to be in the indirect and secondary impacts. If we have huge impacts on the pork market, we've got record pork supplies, that could weigh on the domestic market, and that in turn could affect beef markets. Consumers are going to see higher prices for some goods if these tariffs stay in place for any length of time. Over time, that may actually have a negative impact on beef demand as consumers are forced to reallocate their spending a little bit. Our import tariffs on steel are actually raising input costs for farm equipment manufacturing and other inputs. So there's a host of things that could play out here. It will take some time, but over time we could see accumulating effects of all of this.
So switching gears a little bit, you recently led a group of Oklahoma cattlemen to Mexico. Talk a little bit about that experience and what they got to experience.
We had a very enjoyable and a very educational trip, I think. The group got to see how cattle get across in terms of cattle that are exported from Mexico to the U.S. And then we traveled to a ranch in northern Chihuahua. Late June in northern Mexico is about the driest time of the year. So it really illustrated the challenges that those producers face at this time of the year. And we had a very productive final dinner with some cattlemen in Chihuahua that was a very good conversation of cattleman to cattleman.
Yeah, and it's always good to share that information between cattleman to cattleman as well.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks, Derrell. Derrell Peel, Livestock Marketing Specialist at Oklahoma State University.